All right, J.M. Ryerson, welcome to the show, my friends.
Brother, good to see you again. It's we're coming up on holiday season, and it feels good, man. Good to see you.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. So we'll just jump right in here. The name of your company is Let's Go Win. And I kind of want to just dive into that term of win, right? Because winning, I think, can mean a little bit different to everybody, and we can kind of define it differently. What is your personal definition of winning?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and I get this often. So I started questioning my own definition of winning. I'm like, well, what is it, man? Because I grew up an athlete. I played basketball in college. Like, I'm all about competing. But I will say, as I got into the business world, I'm like, it's not about wins and losses. And so my definition, it comes down to so here, I'll start with this. When I started looking at winning, the same word came up over and over and over again. It was self development, self belief, self love. This word self continued to come up over and over and over. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So, what the heck does self mean? Well, self, I started diving into it's an acronym. Self stands for strengths, energy, love, and freedom. And I was like, all right, that's cool, but what do we do with that? And then I started diving in, okay, there's three parts of each of strengths of energy, love, and freedom. And you have your emotional side, you have your mental side, and you have your physical side. And so to answer your question, what I'm going to tell you is self does start with you, with us, and focusing in on those four areas. Now, the loss part is the interesting one because I don't really believe in losing. I know there's wins and losses in life, in terms of the scoreboard, did you win? But it's really just learning, right? The only way you lose is if you quit. And so for me, winning is literally getting up, showing up every single day as the best version of yourself and pouring from a full cup. So you made sure to check in on you so that you can go pour into other people's cup. That is what winning is to me.
Love it. I love it. I think that's a really solid way of looking at it, a solid definition there of the win. And yeah, I agree. I think it just kind of comes down to growth, right? Are we a little bit better as a person than we were last week? Or are we a little healthier than we were this time last year? Am I putting a little bit more up on the bench press? Am I a little better in the cardiovascular category? Are my finances headed in a better direction than they were this time last year? How about my relationships? Am I having more meaningful conversations with my son right now than maybe I was last year, right? And I think that if we are just continuously pushing the envelope and growing in those three categories of life, then to me that is winning, and it's winning in a big way. Curious though, like for people that kind of struggle with limiting self beliefs, right? And I think we all have those, or we've all dealt with them, or maybe we haven't dealt with them, but we've certainly all had them. For one, how do we even locate these limiting self beliefs that are probably buried underneath our subconscious? How do we find them?
Yeah, brother, it's a good question and it's not an easy one to arrive at. So I will tell you, my self limiting belief was around money. And it started as I dug in and figured this out. What happened was I made my first seven-figure year when I was 27 years old. Now, you would think, all right, celebration, that's this milestone that you hit, and you think you would feel pretty good about it.
At
I look
27, hell yeah, man! I'm going out for like a month straight if I'm making a mill. At 27, I think I was making about maybe 20,000 a year at 27, and I might have been smoking a million joints a year. I think that was the only million I was hitting at 27. So good for you. So anyway, keep going.
Yeah, but what's funny is you would think that would be a cause for celebration, and it wasn't, brother. I looked in the mirror and I felt terrible. I felt like an imposter. And so what I realized real quickly is my relationship with money wasn't great. Well, where did that come from? So here's the three questions you can ask yourself to find if you have a self-limiting belief. Is that true? So my thing around money is I'm not worthy of it. That's
Hmm.
for other people. Well, is that
Sure.
true? Well, no, that's not true because I made the money. Why do I believe that? Well, why I believed it is because my dad and I would drive by the country club and he'd point over and he'd say, "Oh, that's for the pretty people." Some reason that was a bad thing, but that was for everyone else. Now, so I learned that because my dad, well, where did my dad learn it? From my grandfather. Where did he learn from his father? So this thinking went back to like the early 1900s, and now I'm taking this on as my own.
That's pretty interesting.
It's crazy, brother,
Yeah.
right? It's like over 100 years ago, and now I'm thinking the same way they were doing back in wagons and horses. Like, come on, this is crazy. And then the third question to ask yourself is, how is that serving me? And so the three questions, real quick, to find these self-limiting beliefs are: is that true? Why do I believe that? How is that showing up or serving me in my life? And when you get to the point where you're like, well, that's actually kind of stupid, I don't think that's a good way to look at it. What is money actually? Money is just a tool to create other things, creating opportunities for other people. I can donate to charities I love, whatever your thing is. So that whole belief that I had built up in my head or I had been given, it was just based on, again, thinking from over 100 years ago from people that didn't live my life. Well, maybe it's time to start dealing with it and figuring out a better way. And so back to your growth part, that was just getting in and saying, yeah, I don't like the way that feels. I want to make money because I like what I can do with it. I'm not going to believe that anymore.
So
That
real
doesn't
quick, it was,
go ahead.
is it true? And then it was, why do I believe that? And then it was, does it serve me? Those are the kind of the three question framework to go through with that self-limiting belief.
Yep, 100%. And here's the hard part. You're going to look in the mirror, and when you find out, why do I believe that? Well, my dad taught me that. Well, my dad's my hero. So this sucks that I got to look and say, I don't like some of the stuff they gave me. Now,
Right.
my parents were incredible. So I'm clear. They're incredible human beings. My dad's no longer with us, but incredible beings. They're amazing. But they also gave us some stuff along the way that wasn't great. Just like I'm sure I've given my sons stuff that they're going to get better at. And the whole idea, to your point earlier, with growing, you're either growing or you're decaying. There's no like middle ground. And so I want to grow. I want to get better. And it's just that's that thing where you're gonna have to look in the mirror and say, I love you, mom and dad, but that lesson wasn't awesome. And so I want to get better so my kids don't go through it. And hopefully they'll be more evolved than I was. And then their kids will be even more evolved than they are.
I think that that's a powerful way to kind of go through the limiting self beliefs. And I would say if I had a limiting self belief, I could pinpoint up until this point in my life, it might be just around work ethic, right? And I think I might have had a limiting self belief about, I'm just not that hard of a worker. And honestly, it's a big reason I started this podcast, Persistence Playbook, is because I wanted to talk to really hard workers that were doing hard things and big things on a regular basis, and just kind of get into their intellect and see like what really drives them. How do they fight through resistance and laziness, and how do they continuously take action towards their goals even when they don't want to? So I would say, if I had a limiting self-belief, it would probably be that one, and it's still one that I'm working through on a daily basis. But if I really kind of go through that framework and, is it true? And it's really not anymore. I'd say at one point it was, when I was smoking 1,000 joints a year, and when I was 27, it was probably true. But to right now, I don't think any of my friends would look at me and be like, Brett's a lazy guy. I think they would probably say the exact opposite, right? So it's certainly not. It's certainly not true. Why do I believe it is kind of an interesting thing that I don't know if I can dive deeply enough into that right now, but I would say I never really had a beacon of grit in my household. I'd say my father, I never really lived with my father, not after the age of 3. He was a hard worker, but I didn't really see it on a daily basis. Do you know what I mean? My mother went through periods of hard work, but a lot of times also she wasn't working. So I wasn't necessarily seeing like that beacon of grit on a daily basis, like how to work hard. So I'd say that probably had something to do with it. And also I was spoiled rotten as a kid. I was kind of given everything, right? An allowance, was never forced to get a job, was really never forced to work terribly hard for anything in my life until I graduated college. And then the third question, does it serve me? And no, it certainly does not. So I think that's a pretty powerful framework. I like that one a lot, JM.
No, I appreciate it. The other thing I would say that's so fascinating, these labels that we put on ourselves. That's the other thing I will tell. I hope people hear this loud and clear. Labels are meant for boxes, man. They're not meant for people. And I know why we do it, because we're taught that we're going to make it simple, that, Brett's a outgoing athlete or whatever
Right.
the thing is. And what I would say is, if being an athlete serves you, great. But I will tell you, after blowing out my knee for the third time, no longer being an athlete, at least, you know, on my college team any longer. Well, now I had to go through this whole identity thing to say, well, maybe I can't identify as an athlete. So does that make me less? No. It just means I'm changing. Things are changing. So that's the other funny thing that we do, man. We like to put labels on ourselves. And what I would say is, if it serves you, again, that question, if it serves you, utilize it. But if it doesn't, if somebody called you shy and they've called you shy since you were 8 years old till you were 45, guess what? On your 46th birthday, you could wake up and be the most outgoing person in the world if you chose to. It's a choice. And all these labels, that's just what people lumped on you. It doesn't mean that you have to show up that way. That is your choice.
For sure. And I think especially verbalizing those labels. It's one thing to think it, but to say out loud over and over again, I'm a worrier, or I'm worried, or I'm shy, or I'm just not talented in that arena. I think when we verbalize things, there's actual science behind it, that it just makes it much more likely that it's going to actually come to fruition in our real lives.
Yeah, what you focus on expands, right? And where your energy goes, it grows. So if you continue to say, I have anxiety, damn right you do. It's just going to grow and grow and grow. It's that, predestined. You're creating your own reality. Change the wording, right? Stop putting it out to the universe. We are energetic beings. If you don't want to be worried, say I'm confident. And guess what? Eventually, if that serves you to be confident, it'll start to show up. It is funny how it's really not that complicated, but yet we've been taught and conditioned a certain way, or we modeled the behavior that we saw that maybe it didn't serve them, but that's what we were taught. So we're just going to continue to do it the same way.
Curious, have you, because we're talking about verbalizing and how important it is to kind of watch what we say. Have you ever experimented with affirmations and saying them out loud? Is that part of your practice, or do you kind of think that's like voodoo magic and you don't mess with that stuff?
So my kids have said the exact same affirmation every single day of their life. My youngest still won't go to bed today. So to answer your question, yes, I'm a huge person on affirmations. I'll give you theirs, and then I'll give you a much shorter, easier example. So my kids, before they go to bed, I said, "Are you a leader?" And they say, "Yes." I say, "Why?" And they say, "I'm confident, strong, intelligent, athletic, good-looking, dynamic, popular, talented, independent man with a growth mindset." Now, how that shows up in life for my youngest is, he's getting bullied at school one day. And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, the kid called me fat." I said, "Well, what'd you say?" He goes, "I'm confident, strong, intelligent, athletic." He does the whole thing. And I said, "Well, what'd the bully say?" He goes, "He didn't know what to say, Dad." It was one of those proud moments where I was like,
Hell yeah.
damn, bro. He didn't push back. He threw this affirmation at him. He knew that, no, I am these things, because he has wired his subconscious to know that. And I was just like, hell yeah, Trey. Like, that's what I'm talking about. I will tell you, I wish I had shortened that to, like, I'm powerful, confident, and strong, or something like that.
Sure.
But it's what I did for my kids. And so I do, I don't know how many affirmations. I probably do 8 to 10 per day that I'm telling myself. I am the energy I desire to attract. I am whole, powerful, perfect, strong, loving, harmonious, and happy. I mean, I have a litany of them, because the world's going to tell you what you're not. The world's not out there to be like, you know what, Brett, you're an awesome dude, and I think you're just an amazing man. The world's saying, you know what, Brett, I don't think you're that great. And so it's really, what conditioning are we gonna go with? So I don't believe it's voodoo magic. I think it's real. I think it's powerful. And I've watched it with my kids. I've watched it with myself, to say, look, I know the world's going to tell me I'm not, but I already know that I am.
Good for Trey, man, standing up to that bully and putting him in his place. And as a bully, what the hell do you say that? You're like, oh, all right. I guess I'll go bully somebody else, because that's clearly not working over here. I'm not getting through to you. And I think that is kind of the right way to go about affirmations, is kind of really focus on them as character-based affirmations, right? I think those are more powerful than saying I have $1 million in the bank and I own the biggest house in town. Because I think like your brain is going to pick up on the bullshit meter there. Or they're going to be like, no, you don't have $1 million in the bank, or you don't have the biggest house in town. But I think that character traits like courage or grit or impact, we can all think of things in our past where we actually exemplified those qualities. Like if we really think, we can find something on our resume that speaks towards us having those qualities in our trait bank. And I thought it was pretty interesting that you said you kind of wish that you narrowed it down to maybe like 3 as opposed to like 8, because right, there is some science behind that, right? Like when you're assigning like cultural values, like 3 is kind of the number that you want to aim for. Anything more than that, and it might start to kind of confuse people as to what they should really be basing their decisions on.
Yeah, so I actually teach this with businesses.
Oh, cool.
It's so funny. It's Had I known the research, it would have been 3 because
Right.
that's all I teach on. Because you're right, after 3, you have the law of diminishing return. You just start losing out. It's too much. And marketing companies have known this for years, by the way. Snap, Crackle, Pop, the Three Amigos, Three Stooges. I mean, you see threes everywhere. Well, it's because our brains it can really function with 3. So yeah, brother, it's so true. I would have narrowed it down to like those 3 things, but you know what? I guess they've said it so many damn times. They've really sunk in. But I will tell you, if you're starting right now and you want to start with your kids, grab 3 words that I am. To your point, you don't need to lie to yourself, but I am confident, I'm strong, I'm beautiful. Okay, awesome. And then you will start to believe that. Even if in the moment you don't, over time, your subconscious, you're starting to rewire.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'd say for myself, the 3 that I kind of lean on are courage, grit, and impact. And I really kind of just started doing this recently. At the end of my day, I'll say some affirmations powerfully. I'll put some music on in the background that kind of makes me feel emotions. And I'll say, I am courageous. I have grit and I make a positive impact in every situation I'm in. And I say them a few times out loud. And I will say that the more that I say these out loud with emotion on a daily basis, kind of the more I see them show up in my life, and in small ways, right? Like maybe at an event for my 2-year-old, and they're starting to clean up for the day, right? They're cleaning up the games and stuff. Like my affirmation of I make a positive impact in every situation I'm in kind of pushed me to go, oh, okay, I'm going to go help clean up too. I'm not just going to sit here and chat with this other dad. I've got an opportunity here to make a small positive impact in this situation. And that's one of my 3 core values. That's how I aim to show up in every situation. So I totally believe in character trait affirmations. And I do think that, right, pick 2 or 3 that are really important to you right now. Say them out loud, say them with your emotion, and I give it a month. And I think you'll start to see those character traits show up in your life.
Yeah, I think it's such an awesome example you just gave. And here's you use that in that positive way. It's like, all right, I have a choice here, which everything comes down to choice, right? We all have these choices. And you decide, I'm going to go make an impact right now. Oftentimes people wait to start doing affirmations till their life is absolute shit. And it's like, man, my life sucks. So I guess I'll try this woo woo stuff because, I heard it worked. Literally at my last, I got nothing left. This is the last bit of energy I have. Well, why wait? Why not create that reality for yourself right now, just like Brett did? So I love it, brother. I'm glad to when I hear people have the confidence to actually do that. And here's what I would say: what does it cost you to every night say, "I am I'm brave, I'm confident, and I create an impact," or whatever your things were? It didn't cost you anything but 20 seconds,
Correct.
and it's
Correct.
like the returns are incalculable. What you're actually getting from it. So all those naysayers, who I'm sure anybody listening to your podcast, I'm guessing they're not naysayers, but there is a group of people out there that's like, that doesn't work. That's all, voodoo magic, as you said. It's like, it's really not. In fact, they've done a lot of studies on it. But you know what? Henry Ford said a long time ago, whether you think you can or can't, you're right. If you think it's voodoo magic, you're right. If you think it's not, you're right. It really comes down to your belief and the reality you want to create.
Sure. And, you know, it's about being consistent with it like anything else, right? You're not going to say it one day and then be the most courageous guy in town tomorrow. It's got to be an everyday thing. It's got to be done for weeks and months. And, you know, similar to the way, you know, working out 5 days a week for 20 minutes is much more effective than working out once a week for 1 hour. Just, you know, assign those 60 seconds a day, say out loud the qualities you want to bring more powerfully into your life. And then, you know, take log, maybe journal about it a month from now. Like, did I see more courage show up in my life by saying this? And I would say, you know, undeniably, you will see that quality show up more in your life. I want to touch on growth mindset. I know that that's a big topic of yours that you teach to individuals and companies. And I think we all agree with you know the theory and the idea of growth mindset and you know approaching situations from a perspective of I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow in the situation, and that's all I'm expecting of myself. But how do we really apply it? Like before you step into a room or an event, do you actually like say to yourself like I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow? Like how do we actually apply this to our everyday life?
Yeah, I love this question because you're going to notice this happen a lot when you go into, let's say, a room you're uncomfortable in. Or maybe you think you're going to go listen to a speaker that you're just like, what am I going to get out of this? I
Right.
already know that. That is about the worst way of thinking you can get because if you already think you know it all, you've lost, right? And so I will say when I go into these, boardrooms or I went to watch a speaker. I know him extremely well off stage. He wouldn't be my favorite cup of tea as a person.
Okay.
However, he has been extremely successful. Everyone listening knows exactly who he is. I will not say the name because that's not right, but I'm not a big fan of his. But I'm going into this and I'm thinking, I know who this guy is, man. This guy's full of shit, man. I'm not going to learn a thing. I mean, that's the dialogue going in my head. And I had to stop myself and say, stop. What are you going to do for the next 60 minutes? You can either get something out of this or you can go in with this negative thinking and get nothing out of it and literally be bored to tears. And, you have a choice here. So I said, we're going to forget the messenger for a moment. We're just going to listen to the message. And dude, you know what? I walked away fired up. Even though I know the guy's full of shit, I know this about the man. I walked away ready to run through a brick wall because of the story that he told. Now, the choice is I could walk away and say, yep, that guy's absolutely full of it. I didn't get anything from it. Or I was literally like, I'm walking around with extra energy. I'm meeting people. I learned something from this person. And it was just came down to my choice. So that's what I would say is watch your internal dialogue and be mindful of what it's saying. I remember I was about the same time in the early 30s. I remember saying, so I didn't have a growth mindset. I'm realizing as I talk about this stuff, the money thing at 27, early 30s. I remember saying, I have all the friends I need in the world at 30 years old. Brett, there's 8 billion people in the world. How insane is that to literally say it? But I did.
You must have some good friends, I guess, or some really good friends.
In hindsight, they weren't that great, but in the moment, it was all I needed. My cup was full. But it's just one of those things where it's like, how silly is that? And people say it all the time. I am this or I am that. That's why James Clear nailed that book, Atomic Habits, so much. You saying your identity, it shapes exactly who you are, your character, and your
For sure.
destiny. So, be open. I'm open to meeting people every single day. It's why I do my podcast, brother, because I get to meet people like you that inspire me, fill me up. That is awesome. I could say I don't need any more, but that's so silly. So, anyway, I hope that helps because for me, it's checking that dialogue and saying, make the right choice, brother. Get something out of it.
I agree. I think that is really the key, right? It's just check yourself and watch those thoughts and, work on your self-awareness. And I think, meditation is key there. A daily meditation practice will just make you more aware of that hamster wheel that's going on in between our ears all day long. And we'll be more able to kind of catch those negative thought threads that do happen to all of us. Even the most positive Pete's out there. I'm a positive guy. I can tell you're a positive guy. We can still fall into some negativity pits every now and then. But I think just being aware of those negativity pits and being able to catch them and then reverse them back towards the positive, like you did right there, and say, listen, maybe I don't love this guy as a person, but maybe he's got something to say right now that I can use to help more people in my own business. So just kind of making that little 2% shift of what can I get from this, I think that's just a powerful question you could internally, ask yourself before you walk into any room is, what can I learn here? How can I grow here? Like, that's all I'm trying to do. Whether you're at a networking party or maybe you're just sitting down to play a board game, with your family, like, how can I grow here? How can I learn? Like, that's my entire goal. And I think if we went into every situation with that goal, it would free us up so much and kind of detach from the result and just attach ourselves to growth. I think we'd wind up getting a lot farther in our lives.
Yeah, no, you said it perfectly, and it's so true, and it's a practice because, as you said, you're a positive person, but you're going to have about 60,000 thoughts go through your head. We all do. That's about the what they've said.
Is that daily? Is that 60,000 thoughts a day?
Every day, brother. Now,
That's crazy.
some
That's
are going to be positive, some are going to be negative. Which one are you going to choose, man? And but you hear that word again and again is you have the power to choose. And that's why when people say like you shape your own reality, it's so true. Here's a study they did. I just read this the other day it was a good reminder. So they did a study in the UK of 10 people walking down a sidewalk. And before they started on this block, they asked all 10, do you feel like you're a lucky person? Well, 4 out of the 10 said yes. So the 6 that didn't say yes walked down the same sidewalk. They put a 20-pound note or $20 bill for Americans. They put it on the sidewalk. The 6 people that said they didn't feel lucky didn't see it, didn't pick it up. The 4 people that said they felt lucky picked it up. All 4. 100% accuracy based on one question. Do you feel lucky or not? That's the power of what we're doing. Like, you are seeing opportunities all the time. It's just a matter of, are you actually seeing them, or you're so focused on all of the negativity that you're missing out on this amazing opportunity or world that's available to you.
that's a wild study right there. I can't believe it was actually like 100% the people that said they weren't lucky didn't see the belt. I can believe that, but it's a pretty awesome example of it. Kind of curious. I love asking this question to really successful people. What does like your internal dialogue look like on a daily basis? Like, specifically, how do you talk to yourself? Is it more of like an I, like a first person, like I am confident I can do this? Or is it more of like a second person, like you can do this, you're doing great, like almost like you're coaching yourself? Like, do you speak more from a first person or a second person point of view when you're speaking to yourself on a daily basis?
Yeah, it's fun. I'm gonna say it's I am. It's always, hey, I'm this. I don't say you are, because although you could argue on how you could do that, because are you, well, I won't get it. That's way out there. So I say I am. However, I try never to say JM is and use the third person thing.
Right.
But when I'm speaking to myself, it's like I am these things. That's how I go through it.
Cool.
But
I think
no,
it's
I
interesting to know that, especially like very high performers that get a lot done on a daily basis. Because I do think just like the way we speak to ourselves has so much to do with our level of output.
I do. I agree. There's people that look in the mirror and they say, "I am a badass." I give yourself a high five. Some people do say, "You are," but I think there's, for me, it's a disconnect. So I say, "I am." That's all this reading I've done on all the different mantra books, and I have a couple over here. They all start with the "I am" statements, creating that reality. So that's how I do it. I don't know if the other's wrong. Nothing's right or wrong. Ultimately, use it, but I say I am.
On the topic of books, and in researching you for the episode, I see that you are a voracious reader for sure. Learning is just a big part of who you are. If you had to narrow it down, I'm not going to say one. One's too tough. Give me the 2 books that had the greatest impact on your life.
So, Man's Search for Meaning would be one, by
Viktor
Viktor
Frankl,
Frankl.
killing it.
I read it every single year for perspective.
Mhm.
It's one of those books that I feel everyone should read. Oh man, it's this is really hard to ask the other two. I would say the books I read the most would be either Mindset or Think and Grow Rich. So it would be one of those two.
Yeah.
I reference them both often.
For sure. For sure.
Um,
So, so funny how those two books come up so often, whenever that question is asked. And, mindset's kind of a little bit newer, right? But I think that, almost anyone out there who's really doing big things with their life has certainly read that book and respects its ideologies. And then Think and Grow Rich has just been in the rotation for almost every successful person, that I speak with for, when that book came out, what, like 100 years ago or something? I don't even know. It's been around for a bit.
Almost 100 years. Now that you say
Yeah.
that, 1927, I believe it was published. That is wild, brother. I didn't think about that. It's a tough question because they're kind of like your kids. You're asking me to choose your
Mhm.
favorite. um, but I will say, I was looking at my reading list this year, and there's a book that came out, Charles Duhigg, called Super Communicators. I think Duhigg's a brilliant, brilliant author. So that would be the one I'd say for this year that was the most impactful, just because I don't want to pick one, but yes, I agree. Those are two big ones.
Nice. Listen, I appreciate you narrowing it down as much as you did. I know that's tough for you as someone who reads as much as you do. And I always had this theory. I don't know if I'll ever test it, but like if you just read How to Win Friends and Influence People and Think and Grow Rich, and you just read them back to back to back to back for the rest of your life, that you could probably do whatever you wanted in this world. I mean, if you just think about like two books as to like get your mindset right and then get your people skills right, and that might be all you really need to kind of succeed to any level. I've got that theory. I don't know if I'll ever test it, but it's been a theory of mine for a long time.
I was just going to ask you, you want to do a challenge in 2025 and just do it?
uh,
I mean, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Again, about the same time period,
yeah,
1928, I think it was written. I might, you know what? Whether you choose a challenge or not, I might just do that and just
let's
go
do it.
every month.
You're
I'm going
on.
to read them both.
You're on, and we can read other books too. But baseline is read both of those every single month, and maybe we can touch base like a few months into the year and kind of see how it's going for us.
Dude, I'm in. I'm actually really excited. Like, you know how you're supposed to feel? I feel excited about
Nice.
this challenge. So
Let's go.
I'm in. Let's do
Let's
it.
go. I just think like two books that have been like in publication and been popular with business owners and successful people for 100 years each clearly have like an amazing thing to say and an amazing message. And both those books have been copied over and over again by modern books. So like, why not just go back to the ones that have been in publication for that long? All right, that's it. Me and you, we're reading them twice a month, and we're going to touch base. We'll have a podcast a few months into the year and see if we can recommend the strategy for everybody else. I love it. There we go.
Dude, I'm excited. You know what's crazy? And I will just, the book I'm reading right now is The Law of Success in 16 Lessons by Napoleon Hill. I didn't even know it existed. I was watching a video and somebody mentioned this book and I'm like, I know all of his books. Nope, didn't see this one. So anyway, I'm excited for the challenge. And there's one if you haven't checked it out.
I love it. I love it. Napoleon Hill, anything he writes, I'm down. He's like, the OG, thought leader. So we're all kind of walking in his footsteps to an extent. So I want to talk leadership a little bit, right? I know that is one of your areas of expertise. You go into companies, you help the leaders in those companies be more effective. If you had to narrow it down, and we talked about the power of threes and how anything past three people kind of struggle to remember. If you had to dial it down to three character traits that you commonly see in effective leaders, what would those be?
The first one's going to be the one that's most challenging for me, and that's empathy. Uh, every great leader I know has the ability to put themselves in other people's shoes. And I'm talking great leaders. I'm not talking flash in the pan leaders that crush for a little bit. I'm talking they have the ability to say, how does this feel? So empathy is something that I continue to work on a daily basis. Uh, confidence would be the second attribute. The confidence to speak truth, to make decisions that are unpopular, and the ability just to know that I'm going to make this decision no matter how much it's going to be frowned upon. And the third one, I go back and forth. In fact, I've written several blogs on this. I'm going to say communication because I just feel that the greatest leaders have this ability to communicate what they're trying to achieve. The visionaries of the world, the Steve Jobs, the Elon Musks, that those would be the recent example of people that were able to communicate this idea that sounded crazy, and people were to grab a hold of it. I often get pushback. People are like, "What about integrity?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, that's like a permission to play. Like you have to have integrity, otherwise you're not even a leader at all." So I don't include that. That would be one of those that I just expect these leaders have. So empathy, confidence, and communication.
Yeah, I think I certainly agree with those qualities as well. Just the ability to kind of feel what other people are feeling, and then of course just the ability to be confident in the decisions you're making for the company, even if you know they're tough decisions and that you're going to step on some toes. And then effective communication skills, cannot be undervalued. The ability to communicate your ideas in an eloquent way and tell stories behind them and back them up with data so that people really want to listen to you. Just charisma, in general, I think is a skill. I don't think it's necessarily something that we have to be born with. I think, you look at great leaders like Steve Jobs, for instance. His early keynotes were not good. I mean, he was a very awkward communicator. He was not good on stage. He really had no presence up there. But then you look towards some of the ones that he did later in his life, and there was nobody better. So I think for anyone out there that says, "Oh, maybe I am confident and I am empathetic, but I'm just not a great communicator," I think it's a skill. Well, it's a series of skills. It's not one skill. It's verbal tonality. It's storytelling. It's using pauses. It's down intonation. It's eye contact. It's all these different things together. But charisma, along with empathy as well as confidence, are things. They're muscles, and I think that they're muscles that we can build as leaders.
Dude, I love that they are muscles and they get stronger the more you use them. And again, it's so funny the theme continues to go back to having a growth mindset, right? Jobs knew that for him to take this vision to where he needed it to go, he had to get better, right? And that's where often you hear people. I ask this every time to leaders. Show of hands who's a great leader, and you'll see a smattering of people put their hands up. Every single one of you, if you believe you're a great leader, you are. But it literally starts there. You have to believe that you're a great leader, or at least let's even start with, are you a leader? Well, we're all a leader of ourselves to begin with, so every hand should go up in the room. But often, Brett, you'll see it, man. People are like, "I'm not a leader. I'm an employee." Well, no, you're so much more than that. You're a leader in your household. You're a leader of yourself. You're a leader in so many different ways. And yet, it's again, that's one of those labels that I would say should serve everyone. You are a leader. In fact, you're a great leader, but you got to believe it first.
For sure, for sure. So we've broken down the three qualities that you need to be not only an effective but a great leader. Let's kind of boil that down into actions, right? Like actual tactics of all the leaders you've worked with, and you've seen probably some so-so ones, and you've seen some excellent ones. What three actions do you think great leaders take on a regular basis?
So the first thing is they check their ego at the door. It's not about them, it's about the team. That is the most important lesson. You will lose your audience if you take from them. And there's great examples of it. Lee Iacocca in the 80s would probably be the most. I mean, you could see it, man. This guy was this larger than life character, but he kept taking from everyone else. So, tangible number one is to absolutely check your ego at the door. The second thing, and you could argue what's more important, but I will say the second thing is that they pour into themselves before they pour into anyone else.
Love that.
You have to, right? If you are trying to pour from an empty cup, it just doesn't work. And here's what I would say: every female client I have, I ask the same question: "What'd you do for yourself this morning?" And they will say, "The kids and the house and the dogs and the husband and the car and the email." I'm like, "No, no, no, no.
You.
What'd you do for you?" And they don't have an answer. So, in order to be a great leader, you have to pour into yourself.
And that
And then
means reading, learning, keeping your health right. Is that kind of what we're talking about as far as pouring into yourself?
yeah, I would break it down to three basic areas: taking care of your mind, your body, and your soul. If you do 5 minutes a day at a minimum, so listen to this podcast, read a book, 5 minutes. Moving the body, everybody knows. Just go sweat, man. Just go sweat one time per day. Cool. You're gonna live pretty well. And then soul is that thing. Like for me, it is meditation. Every single day, it's meditation. Some people, it's reading the Bible. Other people, it's walking on the beach. It's hiking a mountain. I don't care, but what is filling your soul?
Love that.
So
So
it's
so
really, really
simple.
basic.
And
Yeah.
if everyone just took whatever it is, 10, 15 minutes to maybe get some push-ups in, some jumping jacks, read something that was truly inspirational, and then take a few minutes to either pray or meditate, I think you would just see a huge difference in how you showed up to life, a month or two down the line.
No, it's absolutely true, and they've done again so many studies on this. This isn't Eastern philosophy stuff anymore. This is real world. They're looking at the your brainwaves, and then the third thing I would say is every great leader has the ability to receive feedback. They seek it out. They want to know, how am I showing up? Feedback is one of the greatest gifts anyone will give you, and I don't care if it's the they're giving you a compliment or they're just burying you. You're going to say the same two words every time. Thank you. That's it. There's nothing that you don't defend. You don't say this is why. No. Thank you so much that you are willing to put yourself out there to give me this feedback. You're allowing me to grow and get better as a leader, as a human being.
Feedback is really, it's such a gift, and it's something that most people don't necessarily have the courage to actually give in an honest and authentic way. So I think if it's an employee, or maybe if it's just a friend who's kind of giving you some authentic feedback on, who knows, maybe it's a piece of content, maybe it's a decision you made in your business, thank you is the correct response, right? Because that is gold, because it is rare. And if someone's giving you authentic feedback on who you are and what you're doing, then that's something that's incredibly valuable, so long as you actually take action on it.
Yeah, it's so fascinating that often we want to surround ourselves with yes men and tell you how great you are. It's not helping you grow. I have a neighbor. She is rude, man. I mean, she is not nice.
God bless her.
But, dude, you know what? She will tell me exactly how she feels, and she's honest. I trust her far more than the really nice neighbor that just says, if I say the sky's green, he's like, yep, sky's green. I'm like, how is that helping me? The rude lady is at least giving me something I can grow
For
from.
sure. For sure. I think it's a really solid, trifecta of things to implement if you are in a leadership position. And I kind of want to switch gears here a little bit. And, in doing some research for this interview, I learned that you had a very powerful experience with ayahuasca, and it did transform you in some very beneficial and positive ways. So, I definitely want to touch on that, because I know there's audience members right now that are listening that have maybe been curious about ayahuasca and what type of benefits that it could have for them. So, curious, could you just describe to us, what type of transformation and benefits you saw from your experience with ayahuasca?
Yeah, well, here's as I told you off air, it was me going into the big leagues. I'd never done a psychedelic before,
Love
and all
that, dude.
30 of the people, they're like, "What are you doing, man? You've never done a psychedelic?" I'm like, "Look, man, I'm searching for some answers here."
That's like going
And
straight from the kiddie pool to like the high dive at the town pool. You're doing the triple Lindy right off the bat.
that's exactly right. And landing on your back. You know, it here's what made me finally choose to move forward. Every single person I asked had the exact same answer. I said, "What did it do for you?" And they all said, "It changed my life." I
that
will say the
that
exact
could be
same thing.
good. That could be good or bad, right?
Fair, fair. But if you're willing to see it, if you're willing to uh, expose yourself to something that uncomfortable, and this allows you to connect to Mother Nature, to energy, to there were things I saw that I can't explain. I would never do it justice. And I lost my dad in a pretty tragic way, and I really was searching for some answers, and I definitely connected with not only him but just I don't know, angel guides, universe, Mother Nature, whatever it is. And so since that day, I've had a sense of peace and freedom that I didn't have before. So I will tell you, it's not for the faint of heart, Brett. It's not like, hey man, I'm going to go do some ayahuasca this weekend. Like, no, dude. Like, it's get prepared, know it's going to be work, and know that it's pretty uncomfortable for most people, or certainly for me. And I'm so glad that I did it. And the last day, so we did it 3 total days. We did 2 evening sessions, and then the third was a day session. That day session was my favorite by far, and I was outside, and I wrote a poem that just I can't remember writing a poem since I probably had to do a haiku in like fifth grade. And it flowed, man. It was just me in this moment, just flowing. So it's powerful. It's funny. I said, I don't know that I'll ever do it again. And yet I'm starting to get called again because I'm colorblind, and the colors I saw just alone, oh my God, it was so vibrant and brilliant.
Worth the price of admission right there.
It.
You're like, I saw purple and it was sick.
It was amazing.
I mean, that's pretty wild. And I think, sure. I mean, listen, inner peace and mental clarity is priceless. And to come out on the other side with a higher degree of those two qualities is definitely going to make a lot of people interested in kind of experiencing this as well. And I'm curious, beyond the mental clarity and the peace, did you make any tangible changes to maybe your habits or your business, or was there any like different type of action that you've seen from yourself since that experience?
I think spiritually would be the biggest answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
My morning routine is already pretty substantial. I didn't really change habitually that way, but I have a connection with God that I was raised Catholic. And again, for some people, that's an amazing religion. It wasn't for me. And so I didn't have this really great relationship per se with God. And it actually happened prior to going to the retreat, which they say you're going to have an experience with the medicine, because they call it medicine. And I actually spoke with God in a meditation, and I can never say that it never happened before I even went on the trip. So I just have this connection that I didn't have before. And again, I think that's part of the peace and the harmony that I feel today that I didn't prior.
Amazing stuff. Well, I can feel the peace and the harmony vibes, coming off of you in this conversation. So I can attest that energy is real. JM, thank you so much for being with us today. This was an awesome talk, and I think the people are going to get a lot out of it.
Brother, it is truly my pleasure. As always, it's amazing to see you. I appreciate how you show up and just having me on, man. I'm humbled. So thank you so much.
Hell yeah. Where can everyone kind of keep up with what you got going on right now?
Yeah, I would say letsgowin.com. Check out the Let's Go Win podcast. You were on it. I mean, superstar. So go check it out. But yeah, letsgowin.com. There's free resources. And, my job, my purpose in life is to inspire people to live their best lives. And that's what Let's Go Win's all about. So if you're looking for that, if you want to double your business, cool. We can talk, and I'm happy to help. But if you're really just looking to be inspired, go check it out.
Let's go win.com. What a beautifully concise web address that you got there. I mean, who could hear that and not remember that for the rest of their lives? Let's go win.com. I mean, that is sharp.
I appreciate it. That came from a silent 3-day meditation retreat. So let's go win. That's where that whole thing came from.
Oh, there it is. All right. Everyone's booking their trips right now to South America to hop into teepee and do some ayahuasca. And I am looking forward to our How to Win Friends and Grow Rich challenge. I'm going to hold you to that, JM. We are doing that thing, and we'll touch base about it maybe after Q1 to see how things are going. JM Ryerson, thank you for being with us. Persistence Playbook Nation, thank you for being with us. And this is your weekly reminder that you will feel resistance to the work in your life that you know you should be doing this week. In those moments, acknowledge the resistance. It is real. Lean into your why and take action anyway. We'll see you next week.